And welcome back to Life Unrehearsed. Matt Delvecchio, specializing in life transitions, home care, and the senior living industry.
And I'm Corrie Sirota, clinical social worker and author of Someone Died, Now What? I wanted to ask you, Matt, I know you did a presentation for FADUC.
Yeah, this week it was actually outstanding, a great turnout. It was about downsizing and senior living trends. But thank you for asking that, because a lot of Anglophones in Montreal don't know about FADOC, FADOQ. It's actually Canada's largest organization for seniors, 50 and up, over 500,000 members, and most of them in Quebec, and it is the largest. So I just wanted to give a shout out to FADOC, and if you're not familiar with them, look them up, FADOQ. The reason why it's so popular, there's tons of support groups and lots of education, but they have great deals. If you're traveling, if you need insurance, your eyewear, it goes on and on and on. And there's an annual membership. It's minimal, and that's one of the big reasons why they're popular. So great for FADOC.
Who doesn't love a good deal?
That's right.
That's right.
All right. Thank you for joining us here on Life Unrehearsed. The second half of our show is what we normally call a segment called Helping Moms and Dads. And we've been doing this for a while. There's tons of supportive feedback. We really appreciate our listeners providing us with some ideas and thoughts. And what we try to do in the Helping Moms and Dads segment is just provide guidance and support to not just moms and dads, but their kids, the sandwich generation, and where we've got some interesting and knowledgeable guests. And we cover a vast array of topics. And today is no exception, Corrie.
No, it is not. Speaking of knowledgeable guests, this week we have Matt Delvecchio. We're going to talk about aging in place, the fact that it's become more and more popular, especially during the pandemic, and the fact that people are staying at home longer. But while that can be a good thing, are they making the necessary modifications at their home so that they can live in their home safely? So that's why we're bringing in knowledgeable and interesting Matt Delvecchio to discuss these points. In fact, I believe you mentioned earlier, you wrote an article in the Suburban this week about this exact topic, didn't you?
Yeah, it was just published this week, and it's about what things you can do at the house to age in place safely and securely.
So that said, what trends are you seeing out there regarding people aging in place versus moving to a condominium or a seniors living community?
Yeah, without a doubt, Corey, there are a few trends, but what we're seeing is a lot more of what we call this aging in place. Most people are comfortable in their own homes, and let's face it, the pandemic has made people seriously think about moving, and many are staying put. So, even just the fact that just the thought of moving, and if you've been in either your house or a condo for years, and I'm sure there's boxes in that basement and there's some decluttering to do, just thinking about it is an overwhelming thought, and people tend to put it off. And so what we always try to encourage is make some modifications around the home. And I will also say, even though we're getting more of a thought process to stay at home longer, we are starting to see, particularly in the last few months, and as you know, Stephanie, my wife, Stephanie Cadu, is a real estate broker, we're starting to see a little bit of a movement on the downsizing, more comfortable. And so we are starting to see that trend. It's moving upwards, but there's a long ways to go. As you see in the real estate market, prices are still going up. Why? Because there is very little inventory. Why is there very little inventory? Because people are aging in place longer.
That's the voice of Matt Delvecchio. You're listening to Life Unrehearsed. I'm Corrie Sirota, and we are talking about aging in place, how to do that safely and securely. So I want to, before we even get into that, why would a couple or an individual not want to age in place?
Yeah, it's interesting because you would think, okay, we're going to stay at home longer. However, that's not the reality for some people. Some are just fed up of the home. It's becoming a burden. We loved it. The kids have moved out. It's getting a little too big. The roof needs repair and maintenance, and it's just becoming overwhelming. Some are saying, you know what, this real estate market can't stay hot forever. It's been 2 years. It's been a real good run. So we're seeing some people saying, you know what, maybe it's time to cash in and take advantage of this spring market or summer market. And we're getting that. But I think a big reason why people are moving is because it's just too much at home for health reasons, whether it's physical, mobility issues,
Right.
cognitive, there might be some start of Alzheimer's or dementia of a spouse. That's too much. Loneliness and isolation. We were just talking about grieving and bereavement. If you are alone living in your home or your condo, we're seeing, okay, maybe it's time to move into more a bigger community of people. And the biggest one, Corrie, is, I would say, caregiver stress. If you just, it's too much to take care of a loved one, that's another reason why people are moving.
And a very valid one at that. I think I would go for 1 and 2. Those were more, okay, I'm with you, but thankfully we're not at the stages of 3 and 4 that you mentioned. Okay, but assuming you want to age in place, what are simple modifications that can be done in a home for a safer and more secure environment?
Yeah, I always like to try to keep it as simple as possible. We're going to, I believe, talk about some major renovations that can be done. But first, let's start with the simple stuff. If you can afford a few dollars, I think the number one recommendation I could make is hire an occupational therapist. It's not going to cost a lot. These people specialize in going into a home environment and looking at, we'll say, the warning areas for perhaps an unsafe environment. They'll go through it. They'll provide you with a nice report as to which areas you can focus on to make it more safe and secure. So hire an occupational therapist is a good one. A popular one, a very simple one, but one that people don't want to do is declutter. You've got things lying around. They've just been, and declutter. And I'm not talking, go in the corner of your basement and declutter. I'm talking for the day-to-day walking. If you actually look back and look what's in your way, just because that's the way it's been for years, you might want to consider decluttering. Very simple, inexpensive way to look at things. Rugs and area mats should be eliminated if you can. Really? We actually talked about that in our slips and falls segment that we talked about. That's very simple. You should remove those. The bathtub, Corrie, is an area that is a big concern for many people. So,
how so?
On the simple way of slips and falls. I mean, bathtub is a high risk area. That's where many accidents happen. So some of the more simpler modifications would be even getting in and out of a bathtub is troublesome for some people. So there are very simple solutions like swivel chairs or a simple bath chair that can go into a shower or a bathtub where you're sturdier. Perhaps consider some anti-slip tape on the bathtub. That will help out a lot. So bathtub is an area to focus in on, and wherever we can, try to reduce the use of stairs. Easier said than done, granted, in some places, but we're seeing more and more people sort of getting on one level of living and not having to necessarily go down in the basement to do the washer or dryer. If there's a way to keep your life on one level and minimize those stairs, that would be great. And a simple little thing, especially for those that might have arthritis, those round doorknobs? The round doorknobs are troublesome to turn for a lot of people. So that is easily fixed by going to more of the lever door handles. Then you could use your whole hand to open the door. So a simple little thing that's not a big change, but for those that might be suffering from arthritis, osteoarthritis, that's an area that you can focus on without investing a whole bunch of dollars. So those are some of the very simple modifications. I think sometimes it's just important to step back, look at the big picture, and you can make some inexpensive changes to help you age in place safely and securely.
That is our very own Matt Delvecchio, and he's talking about some very important points related to should you want to age in place, stay in your home. Here's how you do it safely. We're going to go to the more major changes right after a quick traffic break with Jill Fitzgerald. Welcome back to Life Unrehearsed. I'm Corrie Sirota, and while Matt Delvecchio is usually my co-host, today he is my guest as we talk about how to age safely when we're aging in place, staying in our homes longer. So before traffic, Matt had talked about the simple modifications that you can do, and there were a long list, really important list of them. I understand, Matt, there's also some renovations and substantial modifications that could be done in our home so we can really make it safe for us to stay there for many years. What are the ones that you would suggest?
Yeah, I get asked this quite a bit because we talked about some of the simple ones. Now, if you wanted to crank it up a little bit and do some significant renovations, here are some of the more popular ones. And again, I want to reinforce the bathroom. That's always an area of focus. And what some people are doing, they're putting in walk-in showers is very, very popular, just getting rid of the bathtubs completely. Or there are even now walk-in bathtubs where they're cutting out the centerpiece and there's a way to just walk into a bathtub, which is a little easier. So that's a major renovation, but helps out. Grab bars in the bathrooms are also quite popular. And when I talk grab bars, Corrie, I'm not talking about the towel rack. The towel rack, so often, there might be a sticker grabbing that towel rack. That is not going to support you. I'm talking about real grab bars that you can grab onto coming in and out of the bathtub. And then I just want to reiterate the simple things about these chairs. These swivel chairs are people don't know about them. You could even talk to your CLSC. You could buy them at these medical supply places, but it gives a sense of confidence and security doing that. Now, outside of the bathroom, some of the major renovations that are being done have to do with stairs, particularly those with mobility issues.
Mm-hmm.
Stairs are indeed a challenge. So what I would suggest is handrails. If you don't already have a handrail, great investment to get a handrail installed, preferably if you have the ability to put on both sides of the wall. Sometimes you don't have both sides, but if you do, great to put on both sides. But at the very least, have it on one side. And then you could even go a step further, and we're seeing more and more of these chair lifts. You get into a chair and it's bringing you up the stairs. That's an expensive investment, but a lot of people who are mobility challenged and still have to use stairs, these chair lifts are becoming quite popular. Sensory lighting is actually another nice investment to do. What happens is we're getting up in the middle of the night, especially as we age. You go to the washroom.
Yes.
This is when falls happen. You're getting up. You might be a little bit lightheaded. It's dark. You don't see, and that's when you trip. So sensory lighting in bedrooms and bathrooms is actually becoming very popular. You're getting out of bed and a light will shine. And one step further, if you happen to be, say, in a wheelchair or a scooter at home, homes weren't originally built with wheelchairs in mind.
This is true.
It's a real challenge. So what's happening now is even the lowering of counters and cupboards, so you could have access to your cupboards and your glassware and your appliances. Ramps are becoming quite popular outside, and even the widening of doorways. Doesn't have to be every single doorway, but we're seeing this in bedrooms, bathrooms, kitchen areas where you're widening the doorway. So these are big investments, but certainly investments that are worthwhile if you want to age in place safely.
It makes perfect sense, Matt. And you just gave a very important list. And earlier you gave the smaller renovation ideas or modifications. I didn't write them down. How do I find out? How do we know if anyone's listening and they want to remember or hear all of those? Is there a place we can find them?
You know what I'll do, Corrie? It's a good point. I'll post it on our Life Unrehearsed Facebook page. We have a Facebook page, and I'll list these simple and more, I guess, renovative type modifications that could be made. I'll put them up after the show.
So thank you, Matt. That is the voice of Matt Delvecchio, and we're talking about how to age in place safely and securely. Some of the stuff you're talking about, there's no question that it costs money. I wondered, is there any government subsidies that help offset some of these costs?
Yeah, in fact, both provincially and federally, there are tax subsidies. In Quebec, it's called the Independent Living Tax Credit. I'll put this also up on the Facebook page. And that will help subsidize some of your expenses involved in things like putting in a walk-in shower or bathtub, or putting in that expensive chairlift. So the Quebec government will help subsidize that. And likewise, federally, it's called the Home Accessibility Tax Credit. They'll pay up to $10,000 in expenses, even plans and permits and the labor in doing a lot of these investments in modifying your home.
So that's really important. Yes, please put that link up so that people can know how to access these financial subsidies that may be available to them if you are someone who really would like to entertain the idea of staying in your home as long as possible. Okay, we're sort of wrapping up, but we still have some time, Matt. So what is the other advice would you suggest to help people age in place?
I always like to focus in on the caregivers. This is absolutely crucial if you want to age in place safely. So they are the key. And there could be a couple of examples. If you are in a couple, I've yet to meet a couple where the health levels of both the partners are identical. And that's very rare. The odds are one of the two is playing the role of caregiver. And so we have to be aware of, if you're in an environment where the caregiver is still able to provide the proper care, great. It could be one person. You're living alone. Do you have support from family or from the CLSC that can come in and check on you? If so, great. We could live at home longer. However, we want to be able to make sure the caregivers are safe and secure. So, for example, this is the old oxygen in the airplane
Yes,
scenario,
I just used that today.
Did you? Okay,
Yeah.
Same scenario. The caregivers have to be sure that they have the support. They're able to provide the proper care. It's situations where it's becoming too much. Transferring out of bed, in and out of bathtubs, you're now getting physical back problems.
Right.
And so you want to make sure, from a caregiver perspective, you have the support in place. And usually that's through the CLSC. Usually it's through additional family support members. And even if you have to top it off with some home care direct support, hire someone from a home care agency, or if you can hire directly, when you start seeing that you're drowning a little bit, but you want to age in place. And then finally, you need to look in the mirror. If you are drowning and you don't see a way out and you're not able to get that support, not only putting yourself at risk, but the person you're caring for is also at risk, then it's time to perhaps reconsider the living conditions. And maybe it might be time to consider a move to a more appropriate living environment.
Well, but that makes sense, Matt. I'm sure many people do want to stay at home, but it's a great place to be. Home is where the heart is. However, it's not where the safety is. And knowing that, and I think you gave us so much food for thought. I cannot thank you enough for offering all of this very invaluable information to what I would say is either the partner, someone who's living at home and wants to know what to do, or the quote unquote sandwich generation that has elderly parents, and we know what to look for and what things we can do to help our loved ones stay at home. So really, thanks so much, Matt, for your sound advice.
Much. Really, really enjoyed it. Now, what do we have coming up for next week on Life Unrehearsed, Corrie?
We will have the Dora family talking about their experience on Family Feud Canada. In fact, they filmed it back in August, but they have been under a kind of a gag order that they were not allowed to say anything because it's only going to be aired this Thursday. So I can't wait to hear about what they have to share. And also we'll have our second half guest will be providing hope to those battling prostate cancer.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that show. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Life Unrehearsed. As a reminder, for all your inquiries or assistance with navigating home care, seniors residences, or downsizing, be my pleasure to help. Our services are completely free. Call me at Lianas Senior Transition Support at 514-622-8074. Simply look us up under Lianas Senior Transition Support. Many thanks to our technical producer, Cedric. Great job. You can listen to Life Unrehearsed here on CJAD 800 every Saturday at 3 p.m.